Okay, so you bought this camera because it has an amazing autofocus. Everyone in the community made a big deal that your camera has an amazing autofocus. Then you bought an expensive lens to go along with this autofocus performance. Then a gimbal company releases a gimbal and sells you a tool that turns your manual lenses into autofocus. And that's the best selling point to buy that gimbal for you. But you built your system based on autofocus performance. So you do have autofocus system right now. Something doesn't make sense. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Baris Alkas, and in this channel we talk about photography and filmmaking. In this video, I'm going to convince you to not buy that newest gimbal. It's probably a popular opinion to say that gear doesn't matter. And I'm guilty of this too. I make videos saying gear doesn't matter, but then I have lots of gear myself. And actually, I do have a gimbal, and that's exactly why I'm gonna tell you that you may not even need it. Before we get ahead, let me just say that the new DJI RS3 is an amazing gimbal, and if you are interested in buying a brand new gimbal and maybe not considering buying used or anything like that, this might be a great gimbal to purchase. This video isn't really about this specific product. This video isn't about DJI. This video is just about why do we keep buying the newest thing, and why do we get new gear releases pushed down to our YouTube feeds? Oh, I know why, because we are all interested in it. Now, I have my opinions on gimbals. I personally hate using gimbals. I think there's a time and a place where you should be using gimbal because you want the specific smooth shot that you really can't do with handheld. If you want to get some different angles, if you want to do time lapses and hyperlapses and stuff like that, I think gimbals can be amazing for those kind of shots. Well, I don't think it's a fact. Gimbals are amazing for those kinds of things. But on the side, using a gimbal can really affect your overall performance in the set, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Now, before you buy that gimbal, or actually before you buy any kind of camera equipment, the first thing you should be asking yourself, does this suit my style of filmmaking? Right now, I'm more focused on documentary style of filmmaking and brand films. In the stuff that I film and produce, gimbals have a very little place. That's because more of the natural, the raw style of filmmaking makes sense with my style of filmmaking. Last year, I shot a music video, and it was super beneficial to use a gimbal because here's what camera movement does. Just like your sound, just like your music choice, just like your color grading, every single camera move has a meaning. If I'm zooming this footage in right now, it means I'm going to say something important and I'm trying to grab your attention. I'm trying to build something. See, camera movement is like that as well. Let's say you are shooting a chase scene. It probably is a good idea to shoot this in a more shaky form. When you do transfer the camera movement onto your audience, the audience connects with the piece a little bit more. So just like everything else that I counted, color grading, music choice, and everything else, camera movement actually is a way to emotionally tell the story. With the stuff that I'm creating, there's very little room for stable, smooth footage. That's not what I'm really interested in. But whereas, like I said, last year we shot a music video, I don't really want the camera movement or the color grade get in front of the song. I'm not there trying to squeeze the emotion off the audience. I'm not trying to do that. What was requested was a nice music video that was gonna go along with the music. And that's what we did. But then on a recent project, Santiago's documentary, I barely used gimbal. Even when I was following him, I had my rig with me, and it just made sense because the story needed that emotional aspect. The camera shake shows the struggle, it shows the drama, the story that's being told by the character. The character is bothered by the story. The character is upset at something. And how can we transfer this feeling onto the person that's watching? Is through camera moves, is through color grading. So it's all a complete package. Now, that's one aspect of buying a gimbal. Does it fit your style? And there's another aspect. Are you a filmmaker that tells stories through emotions, or are you a videographer that, shoots real estate, that shoots wedding and stuff like that? In those areas, buying a gimbal, carrying a gimbal with you is probably very beneficial. I'm looking at a real estate video, I don't really need to see the camera shake. Like, there's no emotion. Just show me the house, put on a wide lens, throw that onto the gimbal, just show me the house in a very smooth way. That's the difference. If you are a filmmaker and want to convey a strong message and emotion, stick to what you need on that shoot. Sometimes you might need a gimbal. There's nothing wrong with using a gimbal, but when you have a gimbal, let me tell you, this is gonna take us to my next point, it really limits you. Guys, gimbals, you have to mount everything. You have to make sure it balances. You have to make sure, all the features are connected, all the cables are connected. Then you have to make sure it connects with your phone. Then there's like Raven Eye. Then you have to make sure that connects. It's like all these things. Meanwhile, there's a whole story going there where you can actually film it handheld. Then you're pretty much limited to capturing very limited type of shots. See, with handheld, it's not like that. You can get very creative. But with a gimbal, you're stuck to a structure, right? That's not what storytelling is about. You need to be free. You need to do what your vision and your emotion tells you at the time. Sometimes you're gonna want that smooth footage. Sometimes you're gonna want the shaky footage. And having your camera stuck on a gimbal can be very limiting. When I need to use a gimbal, I make sure to bring on a second camera body with me, and that just stays on that gimbal. That way it's balanced, the lens is on, that I don't have to unmount my camera, put it on there, balance it. The story is still there. So it stays on there all the time, and I just go ahead and get that shot that I need, and I go back to my handheld rig, which I am building a new rig for the Fujifilm X-T4. I currently have a rig, but I'm not really happy with it. I want to deck it out and make it more useful for my hands. So be on the lookout for that. So again, let's recap what we said. Gimbals, you may probably not need it for your style of filmmaking. You need to worry about what emotion you're trying to convey before planning that shot. The emotion is more important if you are filmmaking. You need to decide if you want to be a filmmaker and worry about the story and the emotion, whereas if you want to be a videographer who does more of the real estate and wedding video and stuff like that. Not saying that, wedding filmmakers are not filmmakers. That's not what I'm saying, but unless you're going with the filmic look, it's more of the video rather than a complete story. And there are amazing wedding filmmakers. I'm not trying to say that they are not filmmakers. And then the second point was, it takes you away from the set. It makes you focus on balancing and all the technical stuff rather than focusing on the story. And it sort of limits you to those gimbal shots. And let me say, I own a gimbal. I have a DJI Ronin RC2. I'm really happy with it. It just works when I need it to do what I want to do. I'm not a fan of using it all the time, but it's a really good gimbal, and I think DJI makes amazing products. I actually bought this gimbal more so for Raven Eye. That really caught my attention, the video transmitter, but I don't think the new features on the DJI RS3 is really getting my attention. Like I said, the whole autofocus mechanism, when I'm behind the camera, I prefer to use manual focus at all times. I shut off autofocus and I do manual. Autofocus can't tell the story for you. And I admit, it's exciting when, a new piece of gear gets released. I love unboxing a new piece of DJI equipment, that smell of, that nice smell of a new product. I love that. I think we have to be more intentional with our purchases as filmmakers, not only from a financial standpoint. Financially, everyone is in a different stage. Some people can afford it. Some people, max their credit card for this stuff. And I think what's important to know is that we have to be intentional, and we have to think about how this piece of equipment will serve our filmmaking. Or are we buying all this new gear to feel better because we are lacking in skills? The whole message with new gear is that it makes you a better filmmaker, a better photographer, better creative. And it has nothing to do with gear. It has to do with your vision and being able to get what's in your mind onto first the camera and then the edits. That's the most important thing. I love gear. I think gear is amazing. But at the same time, I don't think gear matters. There's a lot of abuse with using gear. People, we tend to think that it's gonna help us get to a better stage, whereas it just makes us consume more and more. Meanwhile, we're not even at the stage that we want. In 4 months, we're excited about another piece of gear rather than creating and telling stories. So yeah, that's it for today. There's absolutely nothing wrong with buying gear, and I'll still be making gear-related content in this channel because I like it, but I choose to be intentional with it. Thank you all for being here. If you are new, welcome to the channel. If you have been around for a while, I appreciate you so much. I wish you all the best, and I hope you all get amazing projects that will allow you to use all the camera gear that you want. I wish you all to have a red Komodo one day. I secretly want one. A red Komodo would be amazing. But do I need it?